Welcome back to Ultralife Today. We are in our third segment with Kyle Drew. He's shared with us some interesting things about fungus and its relationship to different diseases. He's shared with us some interesting things about his background as a pharmaceutical rep in the oncology world. And he's kind of pulled back the covers at him, right? And kind of shown us some dark stuff out there. And then you realize that was how many years ago? Has anything changed for the better, guys? I'm asking.
Wow.
Or has it deteriorated?
I think it has gotten better because of the amount of bribery that pharmaceutical companies can throw at the doctors has definitely decreased. So but the question
over the
is,
table.
Yeah,
over the table.
So by the way, welcome back, Kyle.
Hey,
to
thanks,
Ultralife
guys.
Today for our third segment.
So just let's so what we were talking about last week was the fungus connection, and then Kyle, your journey into pharmaceuticals and the blatant lies that were being portrayed in the oncology sector, essentially.
And what I want to say also, and if you were listening last week, you know the story, selling chemotherapy, being completely disillusioned after getting into the industry, but disillusioned but not disgruntled.
Ooh,
I got to tell you, I, to this day, have never worked for a sales organization that treated me better than the pharmaceutical companies that I worked with.
It's my understanding that they outspend big oil over 2-to-1 in lobbying. So I can see them taking good care of you guys.
And part of the lobbying is lobbying their own employees.
No doubt.
And I got to tell you, I've worked for a lot of sales organizations. 0% have ever done what they promised they would do. 0.
Wow.
Except for the pharmaceutical companies. And so I was not disgruntled. I was disillusioned. I could no longer live, I could no longer satisfy my conscience that I was selling things of value. I believed that I was inadvertently or intentionally misleading physicians because of the way that we were told to market these drugs to physicians, knowing they were not as effective as our studies said. And that's what we were talking about, Josh, is that the studies themselves, if the studies are fabricated and the studies are then given to the doctors and the doctors say, well, the studies say this.
Or you just withhold evidence, as you
That's
said.
right. But the point is that the doctors don't know what's being withheld. The doctors weren't part of all of that.
Right, so they think that this is supposed to be effective.
And that's why I'm not an enemy of the doctors.
Right.
The doctors are doing their very best. They're overworked. In many cases, they're underpaid. I know you don't believe that, but the truth is, it's hard to be in that profession and then to keep up with literally 1 million new studies that come out each year. Tell me how you keep up. And so you look at a study. There's 0% chance that you'll know if it was fabricated or not. So when I went in and said, this is 67% effective, here's the study. But I knew, because of my training, that it was only 6% effective. I could not live with myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you ask if things have changed, one thing Adam said, I'm positive is correct. And back when I was doing it, you could literally come in and tell a doctor, listen, we're going to outfit your whole office with new computers.
Cool.
Just because we like you. Well, that's not because we like you. It's because we're bribing you. We can't say the word bribe, but that's what we're doing. Hey, we're going to send you on a trip to Hawaii, and when you get there, there's going to be a little paragraph of a paper that we ask you to read. It's for science. But the truth is, we're just sending you to Hawaii so that you'll always use our stuff.
Right, so that you'll feel obligated when a patient comes up that you're going to preferably prescribe this.
In fact, I'll never forget my boss in the early days. I said, I'm having lunch at this doctor's office. And he said, listen, stop with the lunches. Do you think a guy making $375,000 a year is going to be persuaded by a lunch? And I thought he meant you got to go higher in your persuasiveness. What he meant is you've got to go higher in your level of bribery. He
Yeah.
said, we need you to outfit his office with, Wi-Fi. We need you to outfit his office. Back then, that was hard to get. We need to outfit his office with new computers. Lunch isn't going to do it. He would just come right out and say that. This was not... Guys, this isn't even controversial in the pharmaceutical world.
Right.
But when you go to a doctor, you have to ask yourself, I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just saying you've got to ask yourself, now, is what this doctor's given me based on sound science or fabricated science? Has somebody been bribed to give me this drug? Or is this the real conviction of the heart of a man or woman who loves his patients? I know that this is controversial, and it sounds so conspiratorial. I'm telling you, I worked in it, and I know that this is partly what happens. It's not everywhere, thank God.
So how did you make this shift from being in that industry to actually beginning to be a guy that is literally has people on your speed dial like the former president of Garden of Life?
The first thing to know is that my company released a new drug, and it had a 0% response rate.
What?
This is for people who had chronic lymphocytic leukemia, had taken everything else. Do you know what we called it privately? We called it boy in the plastic bubble drug.
What?
It means that it so destroyed your immune system.
That you became a boy in a plastic bubble.
Exactly. But maybe the fever would go away. Maybe you didn't have as much of a hot flash effect. And it cost $14,000 a month for 0% response rate.
So I'm paying the pharmaceutical company through my insurance
Yep.
$14,000 a month to have my immune system destroyed, and there's 0% chance that this will actually help me.
That's the summary. And my boss came to Oklahoma City right after this was released, and I said, Bill, I got to tell you, I don't know how to sell this. He thought I meant I don't know the words to say to the doctors. And he said, well, Kyle, what you say is, Doc, have you any patients that are dealing with blood? And I said, no, I don't. I know the talking points. What I mean is, I don't know how I live with myself selling this junk. You know what
Wow.
they said? They said, you got a mortgage, don't you? You want to have kids someday. You want to send them to college, don't you? That's how you settle it with your conscience, big boy. And do you know, I've had that identical conversation with the pharmaceutical industry 4 different times. 4 different times I've had that where they said, yes, this is bad, or yes, this doesn't work, or no, you don't want to give this to your family, but definitely sell it to the doctor. And when I say, how am I supposed to do that? They always come back with money.
Well, you have a mortgage, don't you?
And those
Somebody's going to have to do this job.
4 separate times, it's almost like they use that as the script, Adam. You have a mortgage, don't you? And and so that's what finally took me out. And I quit. And my wife and I were we didn't have a mortgage. We were just about to get a mortgage. And so we said, look, I got to get out of this. I need to find something else. And so I resigned.
Wow.
And that led me on 13 months of no work. And so all the money that we had saved for a house, it was for food and shelter, and
Did
that's about it.
Did you have a kid at that point?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No. Thank goodness. But I had been a lover of nutrition stuff since reading a book by Julian Whitaker called Dr. Whitaker's Guide to Natural Health. And I had been reading about it from a perspective of weight training and bodybuilding long before that.
Right.
And so I was already a lover of these kinds of things. I just didn't think you did it for a living.
So how did you transition from pharmaceutical rep to nutritionist?
I became a nutritionist just because. Did
you have to go to school for this?
Yeah, but I was doing it part-time, and I finally got the certification. But what happened was, it was all by accident. There's a health food store here in Oklahoma City that used to be called the Health Food Center. Now it's Green Acres. And they wanted to start a radio show. And I came to an event at the Health Food Center. It was Doug Kaufman who came there.
Imagine that.
And I hadn't met him yet. And so I'm talking to him. And a guy who I thought was with Doug Kaufman came up to me and said, hey, and we start talking. He was the guy who was in charge of starting the radio show, and he needed to find a host.
Wow.
1 week later, I was on the radio.
Oh.
Once I began doing and I was awful. Once I began doing the radio.
Ah, you're a natural.
Once I began doing the radio, that led me to being able to do nutrition counseling for people. Okay. At first, it was part-time, but that's what got me into that.
All right.
Long story short.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're listening to Ultra Life today. I'm Josh Bellew on a Friday afternoon, relaxing and representing in my Ultra gear. Adam, you're not
I
representing.
am.
Today.
I'm
What's
Superman.
Okay.
I got it.
Wait, can we do this on camera?
Yeah,
okay.
we can.
All right. Yeah, he does. He has his Ultra shirt on underneath. Okay.
It's actually a champion
We're
shirt.
all
I'm
really good
faking
there.
it here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take another short break. We're going to be right back with you for our last segment with Kyle, and we're going to talk him into telling us some things that you just really need to do, and they're pretty darn simple, and you just have to stick with the game. Ultra Life today. We'll be right back.
Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin.
Welcome back to the fourth segment that we're going to have with our dear friend Kyle Drew. This is Ultra Life today. I'm Josh Bellew.
I'm Adam Payne, the co-host here, and we've been enjoying learning the complicated topography of Kyle Drew's journey into being a nutritionist and one of the most prolific radio hosts and the co-host of Know the Cause, right? But Josh, you met Kyle when you started working for us and you were representing UltraCur.
I got a phone call. There's a lady named Linda Lee here in Oklahoma City.
Nurse practitioner.
She is a nurse practitioner and one of the very early people that used UltraCur and got very excited about it. And I guess she'd brought it up to Kyle a couple of times and he went, oh, gosh, curcumin, are
another
you kidding
curcumin?
me? Really?
Gotta be kidding me.
So anyway, but then one day I get a phone call. And
I
it's
had
this guy.
I had so many people telling me you got to get in touch with the UltraCur guys. And I said, no more curcumin. I've taken them all. I used to interview the guy who had the #1 selling curcumin on the planet, and I interviewed him every week on my radio show. And I never got any results until one day he told me to take 15 capsules at a time to actually feel it. And it's true, it worked, but 15? Give me a break.
This is the Cadillac of curcumins out on the market.
So-called.
It is.
I think you guys are now.
Well,
but you, in terms of
In
price,
terms of sales
in terms
and
of price, and
yes.
in terms of sales. But
Yeah.
I did not want to talk any more about curcumin. I was done with it. But then I met Josh, and I personally loved the man, Josh Bellew, within 2 minutes of having a conversation. And we first developed a personal friendship that has turned into a brotherhood. And my trust for him led me to, okay, I'll go ahead and give it a try. And doggone it, if UltraCur didn't work for me. This was brand new. This was 20 years of trying curcumin or raw turmeric and it never having any effect on me. Then I met Adam. And then it is an immediate love affair also, being at the Ultra Botanica headquarters and just hanging out with the guys. allowed me the freedom to say, well, what about this and what about that? And tell me why this doesn't work and why does yours work? And we got to talk about the details of it. We even looked at it under a microscope one day, Adam.
A whole bunch of times, actually.
And so it has led to a brotherhood between these two guys. But even if we were in a brotherhood relationship and the product didn't work, our brotherhood would demand that I be honest with you and tell you.
Yeah, you could have torpedoed us early on and said, guys, stop.
Well, what I have found over the years, and I've said it many times, is that in 21, 22 years of interviewing every supplement company out there, every expert, and just luxuriating in getting to do that, along with doing it with Doug Kaufman's people that he has on his show, there are a few brands that stand out, and there are a few products.
And we don't mind you sharing this, by the way.
Yeah,
So if there's some brands you love, because we don't make everything.
Well, as an example, North American Herb and Spice.
Yeah.
Top down, one of the best brands out there.
Back when Jordan Rubin was the head of Garden of Life,
Right.
I found him to be, first of all, a man of integrity because I got to know him. And it was also a very good brand that had a great underlying philosophy. He's no longer with them, so I don't know what they're like now. But Nordic Naturals is another one, the fish oil company. There's a lot of them out there that I really are called my top shelf brands. And now Ultra Botanica. And it wasn't until I tried it for myself, because frankly, I didn't want to know another study. I knew all the studies.
Yeah,
the studies would say,
am I going to feel it or not? Really?
the studies would show, hey, this stuff does the following things with inflammation, pain, etc. But that, I think in most cases, those were IV forms or a form that was absorbable in some way. But if you cannot get it to absorb, and most of the brands out there will not absorb well. If you can't get it to absorb, it won't work. Well, that means you don't feel any better. And that's why when I started taking UltraCur, as well as all the other products that have come since then, just the regular UltraCur, but all the other ones, this is on my Mount Rushmore of most important brands in the history of the nutrition company. And I don't say it as a favor to you. I promise you I don't mess around with recommendations if I just don't care for it. But it's cost me a lot of money too, by the way. There's a lot of people that's waved a lot of dollars in front of me and in front of Doug. Tell people that you love our product, and we didn't love their product.
Wow.
Sounds kind of like the pharmaceutical.
Yeah, exactly. And I've already done that. I've already had my Judas years in the farm. I'm not going to do it in the industry that I love.
No prostitutes here, right?
I can't do it, Josh.
So Kyle, I have to ask the question: what was your experience with UltraCur? How fast did it work? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much relief did you experience?
What I experienced, guys, is I didn't take it until I had noticeable pain.
Okay.
I had, I don't remember if it was a hip or a leg, Josh. I can't, knee. I don't remember exactly what it was, Adam. But I just kind of held on to it until I had actual pain. And then I took it. Now, I didn't take one capsule. I took 2 of the regular UltraCur product. And it took a few hours. But I got about 40% relief the first day. But I kept taking it. By the 3rd day, I didn't have any pain.
Wow.
Okay? So I'm not one of those who swallow it and then 15 minutes later all the pain went away. I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Right.
I was expecting to take 10 a day, do it for a month, and still not get any relief. That had always been my experience with
that's
curcumin.
kind of like the standard expectation is months of taking it, and then the benefit being kind of like, well, I think I'm feeling a little bit better. My inflammation quality is about 10%.
Exactly.
I went to my doctor, and my number has shifted by 2 points.
And so this
on a
is
scale of 1 to 1,000.
And this is why I start, that's why I began saying that Ultra Cur is the everybody, everyday curcumin. I think for most people, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not your doctor. Don't follow my advice. I'm simply saying that, in my opinion, most people should be taking one of your curcumin-based products every day.
Right.
Now, my son, who's now 18, takes it every day. My wife, whose age I'm not allowed to say, takes it every day. I take it every day. I rotate different ones just because that's the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm talking about different Ultra Botanica products. Right. But what it does, the things that curcumin does that you cannot and will never feel are 90% of the reason you should be taking it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the 10% of the reasons that you do feel will cause you to never use another brand.
Yeah,
It's
very nice.
That's how important it is.
Who coined? I mean, we had a little bit of a discussion earlier.
I don't know.
Who coined the phrase the feel good curcumin?
Well, it was me, obviously, as well as the everybody everyday curcumin.
I think I actually have a picture to validate.
I'm positive I did the curcumin you can feel,
Right.
but I don't care if
Definitely the everybody everyday curcumin.
Oh, that was his.
That's yours.
And then the curcumin you can feel. Absolutely.
the point. But
My favorite
came
story,
from my
Kyle,
feel-good
is the
curcumin.
Austrian ministers. What do you call them?
I have some friends here. I'm on their board of their nonprofit organization. They're called Fahrenheit Mentoring, and they were missionaries in
Missionary, that was the
Austria.
question.
They're from Oklahoma, but they were missionaries in Austria. And the way they had to get into Austria to do it, for whatever reason, they couldn't say missionaries, and so they said professional mentors. And they would be in these one-on-one relationships with people, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm on their board of directors. Well, they don't have anything like this in Austria. And so when the family came back to Oklahoma on furlough, I gave them some UltraCur for some various things that they were dealing with. They loved it.
Wow.
And so they went back
was
to
there a marathon or
yeah,
something
he was
involved in this?
right. Well, as part of ministering to people means that sometimes you hang out with them and do what those people like to do.
Right.
And so my buddy was hanging out with a guy who wanted him to train for a marathon, and my friend had never run a marathon, was an absolute wreck for months afterwards, and then started taking the UltraCur and was better almost overnight. For him, it was 2 days. But
Nice.
he
Very
began,
nice.
he wasn't just an evangelist for the Lord Jesus Christ. He became an UltraCur evangelist.
Wow.
And he was sending it to everybody
That's
in
incredible.
Austria, and he's never stopped. You need to know this guy.
We
In fact,
do.
you need to have him on the air sometime.
Well,
it's
next
incredible.
time he's here in Oklahoma,
He
can you
lives
play?
here now.
He is. He's
He
here.
in Norman.
Well, when can we visit him with him and have a? Do you know him?
So,
Josh, have you met him?
You have met him,
Yes,
Josh.
I have met him one time on the radio program. You didn't show up. You could have met him. We've got 90 seconds left here, fellas.
Oh,
hey,
okay.
I want to run down a really quick list.
Yep.
If there's 5 things that a person would historically need as just a staple, because you
Yeah.
can walk into a health food store and guess what? You could literally walk out having spent your life savings and then come home really confused and say, this is unsustainable. I can never
Here's
do
what
this."
you need.
What do you need, Kyle?
You need a multi-greens powder or a multi-superfoods powder.
Okay.
Something like Delicious Reds 8000.
Okay.
You need a fish oil product, in my opinion. You need
And you like Nordic Naturals.
I like Nordic Naturals,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
I think you need a curcumin product
Okay.
without fail. And then I'm going to stop with the supplement. Look, I could say probiotic also. I would say a probiotic, but I have to say this.
Okay.
You must get the diet right. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 until you start getting your diet right. You must do that.
Can I throw vitamin D in there? It's just one of the
that's a second.
Got to.
Except if
You've got to, Josh. You're right.
Okay.
If you're on a desert island by yourself, you don't need vitamin D, though.
That's what I used to ask everybody when they'd come on. I would
Emphasis
say,
on desert.
that's right. I used to say, give me your desert island big three products. That's
Vitamin
not a
D, you don't.
multivitamin.
You don't need that because you're getting
But yes,
enough sun.
Josh, everybody has to have vitamin D3.
Okay, you guys have been hanging out with the Ultra Boys. That's what we'll call today on a Friday afternoon.
Kyle's one of the boys.
Yeah, Kyle Drew. We've got Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica, over here in the corner, founder of this really cool company and the technology we use to change lives.
Thank you, Adam.
With doctors
Thank you.
all
You're
around the world.
Thanks for coming.
Come back and visit with us next week.
for
You know,
being
we
one of
had
the
Joe
boys.
Tappins last week. We had Kyle Drew this week. We're trying to get Dr. Joseph Parita to come on
will
and tell
come
us
on.
about senolytic
Sinultra.
agents and Sinultra and senescent cells.
Oh, it's just
Let's
it's
do
going to
that,
be a
okay?
party.
All right. We'll see you all next week on Ultra Life Today. Look forward to it.